Hello, everyone, and welcome to Night School. I'm Lynn.
I'm Aria.
And we're part of the Nightlife Night School team at Cal Academy in San Francisco. We mix a little science, music, culture, and more, bringing this to you both in person at our weekly Thursday night nightlife events, which is where I'm at right now, and virtually on our monthly night school program. So as a reminder, we are now monthly on first Thursday. I see some of our regulars in the chat, so I'm so happy you guys are back. We are so excited to be back tonight. We missed you all. I know some of you are asking for a Christina update. I will have to ask her if that's okay. So we'll let you know. But tonight we are going to the East Coast to rescue some turtles. Every year, hundreds of sea turtles are stranded in what locals call Cape Cod's deadly bucket. So we'll hear from some of the amazing individuals working to find them safe passage back to warmer waters.
Yeah, so on that, we're going to hear from three amazing folks who are directly involved with this story, or stories over multiple years. And first, we're going to hear from Lauren Owens Lambert, a photo and video journalist, and she's going to tell us about where, when, and why these turtles are stranded and kind of frame how the experts and volunteers all come together to rescue them. And then we're going to hear from Connie Merigo, who's a sea turtle expert, and she's going to tell us about the process of assessing and rehabilitating hurt turtles and what it was like to do this kind of work during a pandemic. And finally, last but not least, we're going to hear from Ed Filingeri from the organization Turtles Fly Too, which is, kind of a fun name that implies some flying. And Ed's going to tell us about everything that goes into the plane rescue process for these stranded turtles. So you can see their full bios down in the description if you want to go read more about them, but we're going to hear from them today.
And as always, tonight's program is live, so say hi, let us know where you're watching from. Hello to anyone watching in the building. Mary, I saw you in the chat. If it's your first time joining us or if you're a Night School regular, we'll have Q&As after everyone's talk, so make sure you get your questions in the chat. And with that, we will turn it over to Lauren. Once I remember how to do all of this.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren, and I'm the photographer. I've been photographing and following this story for a few seasons now. I'm just here to kind of show you some imagery, talk about kind of the creative side of the storytelling and the turtle's journey here on the East Coast. Right now, I'm located in a town just south of Boston. So that's sort of where this whole story starts, is in the Cape Cod area. Okay, so I'm going to start with some photos here, and I'm just going to kind of talk and show you some images as we go. I'm just going to sort of chat about what is happening here. So start the slideshow. So each year, hundreds of endangered sea turtles wash ashore on the beaches of Cape Cod during the winter months. So starting in November and really going through January. There are sea turtles that get cold stunned out on the water, and they float around kind of like little buoys because they can't really make it out of the cape because it's shaped like a hook, as you can see in that picture right there. So each year, hundreds of volunteers throughout the Cape and run like kind of spearheaded with Mass Audubon. They walk the beaches after every high tide, day or night, in the freezing rain, wind, snow, to go look for turtles. So they head out, and when they find a turtle, you have to either bring it to the Wellfleet facility or kind of shelter it from the wind. So they, package it in seaweed like this to keep it warm. And then they bring them to the Wellfleet facility for, kind of like biological data is collected, and they collect the numbers and any kind of statistics, and then hand them over to the rehabilitators. So they basically come in hypothermic. When the sea temperatures reach about like 52 degrees, it gets way too cold for them to survive out there. So their heart rate really slows down. They can get fluid in their lungs. Connie's going to talk a little bit more detail later about the injuries that they can come in with and what that's like to heal them. But this is really amazing because these volunteers are so inspiring. I mean, it's like this huge community effort to really go out and help find and rescue these turtles. Let me see if I can pause it right here for a second. So the most endangered sea turtle in the world is the Kemp's Ridley. And they're also the smallest, and they are the most commonly found on the beach here. So let me just explain a little like why this happens. Cape Cod is, let's see if you can see my arm in here. It's shaped like this. It's kind of like a hook, which is why people call it the deadly bucket. So this way is south, you know, and this way is north. So when the turtles kind of get those seasonal cues to start migrating out of the bay and heading down south to the Gulf of Mexico and along Florida coast for warmer waters, they can get stuck and confused because they have to go basically north in order to go south first. So they can get geologically just sort of, or, you know, geographically very confused. The other thing is that the sea, the oceans are actually warmer, kind of like in the bay and closer to land. So as they travel inward, they kind of get confused because the water temperatures are warmer. So they can get, you know, they kind of miss the cues to head south. So then this is at the Wellfleet facility on Cape Cod, where that initial biological data is recorded. They're then put into kind of like banana boxes and sent over to the New England Aquarium or the National Marine Life Center. At these two facilities, both volunteers and biologists kind of take the lead in starting the rehabilitation process. So the turtles are recorded, they're given fluids, they're given x-rays, you know, I think in this photo here, she's listening to either the heart or if there's fluid in the lungs. It's one of those two. I think it was actually their heart, because she was looking at the clock. So we get kind of just like going to more hundreds of people that are involved in kind of in the rescue efforts of these turtles. Which is just like amazing. So many people. And one of the things is you can actually volunteer and kind of go into the facilities. This is post-COVID too, or before COVID. But you can go in and help out wherever you can. In some cases, the turtles are tagged, or they either have satellite tags or, you know, a clipping on the fin, kind of help monitor their movements. And the turtles that get washed up here, there's the Kemp's Ridley, there's the green, and there's the loggerhead. Those are the three that get washed up here in this area. So the Kemp's Ridley is really interesting because, again, it's the world's most endangered sea turtle. And I'm going to start over. Bob Prescott, who started the finding of the turtles on the beach in the 70s, you know, was only finding like a handful at a time. Since then, we now find 1,000 or more within a season. So we're seeing this huge increase of sea turtle stranding in the area. And there's a few different reasons for that. So I'm going to pause it here for a second because I want to talk about turtles fly too. But see, what was I? So yeah, the increase. So there's this like huge increase of sea turtles being stranded in the area. And that's kind of a combination of things. It's a combination of climate change. You know, we're seeing warmer and warmer waters. The Gulf of Maine here is one of the fastest warming bodies of water of its size in the world. So therefore, the sea turtles' habitat could be expanding. You know, they kind of hover out in the ocean for the first few years of their lives. They follow the warm water. It brings them into Cape Cod. And then they stay for longer. So, and then, you know, come November, those temperatures can drop really quickly, really soon, because New England winters are harsh. They're cold, they're windy, they're icy. So that change is maybe just happening faster. We're still studying this. A lot of people are still looking into exactly how the warming waters and how climate change is affecting the sea turtle stranding here on the Cape. And it's the largest sea turtle stranding in the world that happens, and it happens every year. The second reason why we're seeing such an increase in turtles is because of successful conservation efforts elsewhere. So Ridley in the 40s, I think there was over 40,000 nesting females recorded on this one beach in Mexico, which was the only beach that they nested on. And since then, like by I think the mid 80s, it went to like less than 500 nesting females, and that was because of egg poaching. We're getting entangled in fishing nets, which now they've created like the turtle escape hatches and everything. There's pollution, there's coastal development. I mean, there's a lot of issues why the population of the Kemp's Ridley has been suffering for so many years. But one of the reasons why we might be seeing an increase is because I think around now, the numbers that I've been seeing are an estimated like 7,000 nesting females. So the population is starting to increase, and it's been sort of doing this for a few years, like it kind of goes up and down. So the conservation effort is real. It's a really big and important push, and it's taken so many people. So if it wasn't for the rescue efforts that happen here in the winter on Cape Cod and the people involved in that, I mean, there's a high likability that these species may have already been extinct if they weren't being rescued here, and if the conservation efforts in the Gulf of Mexico and other regulations weren't in place. So it's pretty good, and hopefully we can keep it going. So on this photo here, this is actually Ed, who you're going to hear from later. And he, like, this is in the early morning. I think this is in Marshfield, and we're loading up sea turtles from the New England Aquarium and the National Marine Life Center into these airplanes that, again, are all volunteer base out of, the love turtles. They fly them from here in Massachusetts to wherever they need to go. Because of COVID, that has increased as well. We've had this huge need for pilots and for other facilities across the Eastern Seaboard to kind of step up and help rehabilitate these turtles. So when they're not, if they're not fully ready to be released into the wild, they still need further rehabilitation. But our facilities here can't hold the amount of turtles. There's just too many of them. So we rely on this huge network of people in Florida, in Georgia, in Texas. It's a huge, a lot of different aquariums and facilities really stepped up to care for these turtles, especially this year. I think the network has just grown because of the restrictions that COVID has put on everybody. So, the story that I've been trying to tell, it's about Kemp's Ridley, it's about sea turtles, it's a little bit about climate change and all that, but it's mostly about people, and the network that these turtles kind of have created out of the need of survival is pretty amazing. And every person who steps up to volunteer time or any resources that they have is just so valuable to the survival of these sea turtles, and especially the Kemp's Ridley, again, because their populations are still so small. So here I was in an airplane and we're flying, I think it's the largest turtle transport to date. That might just be private planes. Maybe Ed will know if that's like maybe the Coast Guard or a government institution transported more turtles, but there was 120 turtles on this plane. And we flew from Massachusetts to Texas, where we dropped them off at, I think, 7 different facilities, from the Texas Seacoast Center to the Houston Zoo. I mean, there's so many people involved. And after they get further rehabilitation and a little bit more care, we can finally get them ready for release, which for me was just like the most exciting thing to photograph, because, I've been following them for a few years and I've been very focused on the Cape, and to see the same turtles that came in half dead, clinging to life with a heartbeat of a 1 beat per minute or more, to see them flapping and just like really excited to go back into the water and swim was just awesome. And it was just really great to see those moments of them kind of completing their journey, getting healthy, and going back out into the water. This will start all over again come November. We will be getting a new batch of sea turtles who need help. So, we put them back out there and we hope for the best. But again, without this huge effort, across the entire eastern part of the country, these turtles can really hopefully have a better chance of survival. And it's a lot of the reason why their populations are suffering are human caused issues. So all we can, the least we can do is really step up to try and save them where and when we can. So that is the last photo of them being released into the Gulf of Mexico. So I hope you enjoyed everything. I think I've been talking for maybe 15 minutes, which is good. But, please let me know if you have questions. I'm happy to talk more in detail about the increase, the numbers, or the photography, the storytelling, anything like that. So thank you.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Thanks for the presentation. Sorry, I was pulling the buttons. I love those photos at the end. It's like so sweet to see. My first question, which is maybe a very important one, is what was that little noise? Because I know what it was, but I believe you have a little friend to share.
Okay. Yes, this is my buddy.
So in case anyone heard some chatter.
Yeah. He would have been making some little noises in there, but I'll just put him on my shoulder for now. You guys can see, you can see him.
Yeah. Okay.
The very important question.
Yeah, it was very important for me.
Yes.
First question is, how did you get involved? Was it? I have some notes on like turtles and photography. Like, was it science journalism? How did you get involved in this project?
Yeah, well, I grew up in this area, so it's kind of a local environment for me. And my aunt and uncle live on the Cape. And one year he was sort of talking about, I was walking the Cape and I'm looking for sea turtles this year. And I think it was his first year volunteering and kind of joining the volunteer effort on the beach. And honestly, like, I've never heard about it. I grew up here. I didn't even know that Cape Cod had sea turtles in the area. I just always pictured them tropical, like I thought our waters were just too cold and not really suitable habitat for sea turtles. But I was completely wrong. And it just started this whole learning journey for me about which turtles we have, when are they here. And then I just started learning about the stranding and thought it was incredibly interesting. And since then, I've just been hooking up with volunteers and asking them about their stories. And one thing led to the next. And, a few years later, I've been finally able to kind of tell the whole thing in its entirety. So it started on the beaches of Cape Cod. And then it ended in the Gulf of Mexico, kind of with its whole journey. So, but it was really my uncle who told me about it.
Yeah. That's amazing. Do you know when people first started noticing the turtles getting stranded? Like, how did your uncle find out about it, or like how long has this been going on?
Right, that's a really good question because it is a natural phenomenon. So I think they found a couple of sea turtle shells and bones, even with the Native American settlements. So this is something that has been recorded for, thousands of years. This has been happening, but it's been happening at a very small scale. So turtles, I don't think, have been stranding in the numbers that they're stranding now. That said, Bob Prescott, who started the sea turtle rescue efforts on the Cape, when he was first walking the shores, he would find like 1, 3, maybe 5 turtles in a whole season. I think last year or this past year, we had like over 1,000. It was like 1,045 or something that we had this past year. The record was in 2014, and I think that was like over 1,200 sea turtles were found and rescued. So the natural phenomenon aspect has been happening for potentially thousands of years, maybe longer, but the numbers just kind of keep increasing. And I think there's a lot of people looking into why that might be.
Yeah. Have you had any interesting interactions with non-volunteer people while you're out in the field? Like, are there more people who are interested in volunteering as they like interact with you?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And those are actually some of the best moments because, again, like you can see the light bulb go off. And when you're on the beach and you have a turtle people are like, whoa, like, what is that? And I didn't even know we had turtles in Cape Cod, kind of the same thing. So then they can learn about the story and the process and what happens in their backyard, and then get involved as they see fit or as they can. And it's the same even with dropping off the turtle, like whether it's in Texas or Georgia, because they're transported in these banana boxes, usually like a Chiquita banana box, and because it's perfect turtle size, apparently it's like the perfect turtle size. And when you see people carrying like banana boxes filled with sea turtles, one might have a few questions on what's going on. So
Just
those little
few.
interactions, those interactions of people coming up and asking like what's happening, or those are really fun because they're learning moments for those people, and they get to hopefully be involved. I know one lady, just a real quick side story. I was walking the beach with a volunteer, and we passed somebody. So we asked them, hey, have you seen any sea turtles down there? And she was like, yeah, I saw one and I put it back in the ocean, because, that's sort of what you would do. It's a sea turtle. It should be in the water.
Right.
But that's like the worst thing that you could do in that particular scenario, because you're putting it back in like freezing water. So you could just hope that it re-strands and can be found. But so that was like a learning moment where, the volunteer I was with was able to kind of educate her about, well, next time when you see one, like, make sure to bring it up past the rack line, dig a little hole, cover it in seaweed, and call Mass Audubon, and they'll come grab it. So, these learning moments as you go happens almost every day in the field. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. That's a good note for anyone watching. If you see a sea turtle, don't put them back in the water.
If it's winter in New England.
Specifically that. We did have a question about banana boxes. Is it why banana boxes? Is it only because they're like the perfect turtle size, or is there any more to it?
Yeah, maybe Con can talk a little bit more about this, but from what I understand is that they're pretty easy to locate. Like, I think they would go to grocery stores and ask for the old like delivery boxes that the bananas came in. So I think they're relatively easy to locate, and also it's just like the perfect turtle size. They, in order to fit in the plane, and Ed can talk about this, but you have to really think about dimensions and weight, and all of those details really need to be worked out. So when you have a set box that has a set size, even if it's a particular brand, then you can just sort of copy and paste that, and it's easier to figure out the details of the transport as well.
Cool. And then last question, I'm going to mention this again at the end, but Lauren, I just wanted to give you a few moments to talk about maybe the biographic story that's coming out. So if anyone wants to learn more, Lauren,
take it.
Talk more about it. Read it.
Yeah. There's this whole story will be coming out in biographic. I'm in the process of finishing up the writing and getting these edits to the photos and working with the editor. So the story should be out very soon, and there it'll have a lot more of the science, a lot more of the journey, and a little bit more just description of what the scene sees, feels like, sounds like, everything like that. But it will be coming out with biographic soon, and I'm hoping to even continue the story into the next year or two to really focus on the sea turtle egg conservation work that's happening in Texas and Mexico. So hopefully this is kind of just like a part A of a little bit of a broader story as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. So excited to have you on, and look forward to hearing more about the story.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Up next, we'll have Connie.
Hello, hi everybody. My name's Connie, and I have one logo on my talk, but I probably should have two. So just a little quick about me. I spent 27 years of my career with the New England Aquarium, and just recently moved down to the National Marine Life Center. And we all work together as part of the team that Lauren just talked about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the rehab side. So you heard that the turtles will strand on the beach, the Massachusetts Audubon at Wellfleet Bay, is the group that's responsible for doing all the beach walks and the actual rescue from the beach, and then they send them up to us. All right. Okay. All right. So because I think some of you are from all over, I wanted to at least give you a little bit of an idea of where we are. So we are over here on the eastern side of the East Coast, I should say, which is actually the Western North Atlantic. So it's the western side of the North Atlantic. And Lauren was talking about the deadly bucket, and she used her arm to show you the sort of horseshoe here hook that makes up Cape Cod. So this is the landmass that you see in gray. That is Cape Cod, and this is actually the center part there is Cape Cod Bay. And as Lauren described, the turtles, as the water starts to get cooler, will come south. If they aren't already in the bay, they will sometimes head south looking for warmer waters, and they bump into this landmass. And it's further confusing because if they start to work their way up the side here, then they end up right in Wellfleet Harbor, or right down here is P-Town Harbor. So there's multiple traps within a trap. It makes it very confusing for these animals to be able to get out. So the turtles, when they come in, they're all coming in. We call them cold stunning, which is the term for when hypothermic turtles come in. But really, in the human form, it's just hypothermia. And hypothermia happens in humans. Really, you're starting to get into trouble if you're 2 degrees below your normal body temperature. Some of these sea turtles are coming in with a body temperature, core body temperature, 30 degrees below what their normal should be. So this is a real extreme event, and some of these turtles are really sick, critically ill by the time they come in. So sea turtles are ectotherms. That basically means that they are going to become the temperature of their surroundings. So they cannot generate metabolic heat the way we do when you're running and you get hot and sweaty. Turtles can't generate metabolic heat, so they become the temperature. So as Cape Cod Bay starts to cool and it gets cooler and cooler, so do the turtles. And this happens every year as fall and winter start to approach. And the problem is some of these turtles have been exposed in the bay from August now into September, October. So they're out there getting cooler and cooler for months. So by the time they reach a real critical point, they start to lose the ability to swim. They can't dive, they can't forage. They really don't have a whole lot of muscle control at all. And then they float to the surface, and they really are at the mercy of the winds, the waves, and the currents. Once they get blown ashore, they're also then exposed to wind chills, which sometimes here in Massachusetts in the fall can be well below zero. So it's detrimental in many ways. So there's 2 sort of phases of care. When the turtles first come in, and as Lauren mentioned, these turtles are coming in batches. Sometimes we might get 20 or 30 at a time, and then you might get another 20 later in the day, and that will repeat itself the next day as well, depending on the tide and the winds. So the immediate triage is we're looking for responsiveness. It can sometimes be difficult to tell if these animals are still alive because they're immobile and they're really almost completely unresponsive. And some of them are completely unresponsive. So we are looking to collect a core body temperature, find out just how cold these turtles really are. We're also looking to collect a quick heart rate. And this is a fetal heart monitor that you saw in one of Lauren's photos. And you're basically listening for the blood flow, and you're counting that as the heartbeat. So that little device there is going to give us the heartbeats. We're also looking at respiratory rate. And then, of course, we're assessing each turtle for injuries. They come in sometimes with some pretty severe injuries that were not necessarily part of the stranding. So it's not something that happened as they were being thrown on the beach. Sometimes they're long-term issues that they've come in with, boat strikes, and they've been floating around like that. And I'll show you some photos in a moment. But so after that initial triage, figuring out who's alive, who's very critical, Then we go into a physical examination where you're looking at injury assessment if they have injuries, eye exams, including staining the eye to see if there's any uptake, which means it's giving us evidence of bacterial infection in there. We do palpation, so you're looking for, you're sort of feeling down the limbs to see if you feel for any possible breaks or even swelling. We also radiograph these turtles, as you can see there. So that's an X-ray, and that tells us if there's breaks. But it also, one of the most important reasons we radiograph these turtles is because they are prone to lung disease. So the turtles, again, have been floating around for weeks on end, sometimes months. They might be aspirating seawater, they're breathing in cold air, and the majority of the turtles that come in, at least the Ridleys, do have lung disease. So they have either a bacterial pneumonia or a fungal pneumonia. And so the X-ray here on the right-hand side, I'm going to use my cursor, and this is showing a nice healthy lung. So you can see these arrows here, that's pointing to the edge of the lung here. This is a nice healthy lung. Turtle takes a deep breath, and there's really no problem. Same on this side. Right here is the nice little margin of the lung. It looks beautiful. If you look at the radiograph over here, you see what looks like a honeycomb effect, and that is a sure sign of lung disease. So this is a turtle that would be started on antibiotics pretty much right away. I'm going to show you some more images so you can see a little bit better. So this is a different type of image. And you can see here, so on the right of this photo here on the left, this is at least looking like it's an almost normal lung. It's black. It should be all black. So these white lines up here, that's not a good sign. There's definitely some disease going on there. But the left-hand lung, I mean, this looks like a river is running through it here. All of that white material should not be there. That's all signs of lung disease. And these images here, the same thing. This should be all nice and black. This whole top here should be the image of the lung. And there's so much disease there on the left side, you can barely tell that that's what the lung is like. I'll warn you, the next slide is a little bit graphic. I'm actually showing you diseased lung tissue so that you can see how bad it gets. So if you don't like to see the tissue or a little bit of blood, you should look away now. Okay. All right, so these are images of diseased lungs. This is not all the same turtle, but this is sometimes what we find on the turtles that we can't save, or sometimes the turtles that arrive dead. We do a necropsy in each one so that we can learn. And a necropsy is an autopsy. It's just called a necropsy when it's done on an animal. So in here, you can see all this white. That is absolutely abnormal and probably very uncomfortable every time this animal tried to breathe. And turtles can get fungal. That looks like fungus to me. I didn't look up this number, but they can get fungal pneumonia and bacterial pneumonia. So these little edges over here on this bottom picture, that looks a little bit more normal. The whole lung should look like that. If you just looked at this little sliver, it should look nice and pink and a little bit spongy like that, and not like this at all. This is all diseased lung area. This is a different turtle with a much more advanced. So this part of the lung here that you see looks brown and almost a little bit flaky here with that edge. That's necrotic tissue. So that's already gone to the next phase, and the tissue is decaying. So lung disease is very serious in these turtles. They come in with a severe pneumonia, or usually within the first week or so, they're developing it already. So when the animals come in, we try to radiograph them within the first day or two so that we can tell exactly what's going on, because that can sometimes be our biggest problem. So in terms of clinical management, so we have turtles that are coming in, they might be 20 or 30 degrees below their normal temperature. You can't just put them up in a little incubator and warm them up. We have to warm them very slowly, roughly 5 to maybe 10 degrees a day Fahrenheit, and they'll stay at that increase for 24 hours, and then we'll increase them again 5 to 10 degrees, and it depends on their activity level and multiple factors. They also are coming in quite dehydrated. And with that dehydration often comes derangements in their electrolyte levels. So their sugars can be either low or really high, depending on their stress levels. Their sodium is often very low. So we collect blood so that we can see, what do these levels look like? What should they be? And then we can start taking corrective measures. So both the New England Aquarium and the National Marine Life Center have veterinarians that are looking at the bloods. They read the blood and they are prescribing what each turtle is going to get to take those, to make the corrections so that we can get the blood levels back to normal. So we're also looking at cardiac and respiratory meds. Those are given as prescribed if they're needed. So these turtles, when they come in, can have a heart rate, as Lauren said, of 1 per minute, maybe 3 per minute. If you get a turtle that you find a heart rate of 10 beats per minute, that's pretty decent. And you can imagine, what's probably going through your head is, can you imagine a human with a heart rate of 3? It's not survivable for humans. But these turtles, the cold slows them down. And because they're reptiles, they're slow in the first place. So they're pretty slow, and they can survive this with proper treatment and care. They can survive pretty well. And I'll show you some post-release tracking that we did. Also, antibiotics, specific other supportive care as needed. It might be vitamin therapy or other types of therapy that they may need. We do laser therapy as well, wound care. And then something very important for these turtles, you can see in this photo over here, there's a staff person leaning over, just testing that turtle. We're trying to see, can the turtle swim on its own? And a lot of times they can't. They need to be supported, as you see in that photograph, or they have to have very small, short supervised swims so that we can see how tired are they getting. And you don't want to wear them out where they're going to use up all the sugars and salts and other electrolytes that you just provided through the fluid therapy that you see here in this photo. That's a little syringe full of either prescribed fluid, and we're giving it subcutaneous. So you put a little needle just under the skin there, and you push the fluid in, and it will slowly absorb into the animal. So the swimming is really important for a number of reasons. It's innate in these turtles. So when you start to enter them into the water, you start to see little bits of movement in the flippers, and it naturally prompts the turtles to breathe on their own. And it also, as they're using their flippers and moving, once they start paddling, it's getting their heart rate up. So it's really sort of, they're saving themselves to a certain degree by doing it this way. If we were to just give them all of these treatments and put them back in a transport container or in the incubator, they will slowly power down. They have to really get the blood moving, and they have to get the oxygen circulating. This is a slide of just some examples when the turtles come in and what they look like. This turtle here in the upper left-hand corner came in missing. You can see this whole top part of his head, this little scoot plates there are all completely gone. And we treated that, and he went on to do well. It takes a long time for that to heal, though. Underneath there, we see a tremendous amount of eye problems for these turtles. It's extreme cold that they're exposed to with the wind chill. Imagine what that does to your eyeball. But also either just maybe being banged up on jetties or rocks or against piers while they're floating around. They can't really paddle, so they can't get away from those things. So the tide will throw them into rocks. And certainly the worst is the seagulls. If the seagulls get to the live turtles before the rescuers, they can start to do some damage. So this is the turtle here had some sort of injury, came in with, and was missing his bottom eyelid there. But this turtle also went on to recover. This image here in the center, those aren't really injuries. It's just a picture to kind of show you the different range of what they look like when they come in. And this is like an algae that's on his, we call this the hula skirt effect. And you can tell that this turtle, there's a little float pattern here where the algae is all around this area, but not right in the center. So that tells us that that part, the turtle was floating and that was the exposed area. Some of these turtles come in and that little hula skirt is sort of lopsided, and you can actually tell which side that turtle might have lung disease based on which lung was heavier and sort of sank into the water and was wet on that side. So we started to learn years ago that we can really learn a lot from the float patterns, about the float patterns rather, based on the algae and the growth pattern. The last image here is an example of a boat strike to other type of traumatic injuries that we see. There's a strike here just behind the limb. There's another strike here lower on the shell. And this was a pretty bad strike. You can actually see into the body cavity. So this top shell is called the carapace. The bottom shell is the plastron. And this wound severed right through there. And you could actually see right into the cavity. But I put a happy ending up here. So this turtle actually went on to survive. As gruesome as that injury was, the turtle did quite well and was eventually released. So there's always a happy ending. Another big part of rehab is nutrition. These turtles are not capable of eating usually for the first week, sometimes more, depending on their condition. They're really cold. They just don't have the energy almost to eat. So a lot of the balancing of the electrolytes is done through the fluids every 3 days roughly, or every day if it's really bad, again, as prescribed by the vets. And then we have to start trying to get them to eat their own food because they will heal a lot faster when they're consuming their own nutrition. And this is what feeding time looks like. There's herring steaks and cut up squid. And in this photo here, you can see there's a little pair of tongs that are coming down into the water. Oftentimes, these turtles just will not eat on their own. You have to sort of take those tongs and make the food dance a little bit in the water. And then you can remove the tongs from the feeding situation after the turtles start to eat on their own. So these are just different examples of turtles. This one's diving down. He's got a little piece of food there. And this one's eating a little squid ring. It's always a joyous occasion when they start eating on their own, because then you know they're going to start healing and they're feeling better. If they're eating, they're feeling a little bit better. So that's a good indicator. So this is a photo of satellite tags. So when the rehab is, when we think they're approaching their healthiest point, we will do a pre-release veterinary exam and pre-release blood work. And once everything appears to be back to normal, and the turtles have to meet sort of a set of criteria, they have to be able to swim and dive, catch their own food. They have to be able to escape predators, that sort of thing. So there can't be any major injuries that would slow them down. So we wanted to, a number of years ago, we wanted to try to understand what happens to these turtles once we release them. Are they able to survive, I guess is the best way to put it. Are they able to survive in their own habitat without our support, without our feeding and that sort of thing? So we satellite tagged a number of turtles, and we're actually working on multiple publications now regarding the results of these, the satellite tag data. And the map here on the right, this is a pretty rudimentary map. I pulled this out of an old file, but it's a great map that shows, so here is Cape Cod. We always release the turtles on the outside of Cape Cod, so not inside that deadly bucket. Because we just don't know if they are savvy enough to be able to get out, even if we put them out there in the best health we can. So we release them on the south side of the Cape, and these different color lines are different turtles that we happen to tag that year. And some of the interesting data that we got is, you can see this line here, this cranberry line, this was a green turtle. And prior to this tag, we never knew that sea turtles went all the way out to the Gulf Stream. And this turtle overwintered in the Gulf Stream. So this is Newfoundland, Canada up here. And we never would have dreamed that a small green turtle would have spent the winter. So freezing cold winters off of New England, this turtle went out to the Gulf Stream and stayed there. Now, the Gulf Stream would be roughly around 80 degrees, and there's a lot of forage. So it's a perfect habitat for this turtle. But this was the first evidence that we had that these small turtles would actually go out there and stay out there for over a year. Some of the other turtles in this slide, this one came all the way down here. So this is the coast of Florida. This is the tip where the Keys are. And this turtle came all the way down the coast. And we see that quite frequently with a lot of our satellite tags. So the good news is, with the proper care and good clinical management, these turtles can do quite well, even despite the low heart rate, the low body temperature, the low respirations. They really can recover quite well. So this is my last slide. I put a few graphics in there leading into Ed's talk, because Ed is going to be talking about when the turtles need to go, Turtles Fly 2 steps in and they help us transport these turtles out. And the first year we started working with Turtles Fly 2 was in 2014. And that was a record year, as you heard Lauren say. It was over 1,200 turtles. And it was overwhelming. We literally we weren't sure when it was going to stop. And if it was going to stop, like, they just kept coming in and kept coming in. And a gentleman reached out to us by the name of Leslie Weinstein, and he offered to help us schedule flights. And that was the beginning of this relationship with General Aviation in helping to fly these turtles to other facilities that can rehab the turtles. So it's been an unbelievable partnership that has allowed us to save a lot more turtles than we would have without them. So it's been a pleasure working with them. It's really fun it's a whole different world. I do my biology and rehab with the turtles, and then I'll show up in an airport and be talking about, flying weather and gauges and all sorts of stuff. But it's been a great learning lesson, and it's a great group of folks that help us out.
Hi, Connie. Thanks so much for sharing. This was amazing to hear about, and we've got tons and tons of great questions and comments from the chat, so I'm just going to jump right in here. Okay. And first, I wanted to share, we got like a really lovely comment from Marie in the chat saying, "All gratitude for our planet guardians," which I thought was really sweet.
Thank you, Marie.
Yeah, and so jumping in, can you remind us once more how long this whole rehab process is, kind of from start to finish, with these turtles?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think I included that. Turtles that come in earlier in the season often are a little bit easier to rehab because they haven't then been floating out in Cape Cod Bay throughout the entire month of November and most of December. So the earlier we get them, generally, if they have a boat strike, that's a different story. But those are turtles that really can be turned around in sometimes 1 to 2, maybe 3 months.
Wow.
More severe cases where they have that severe pneumonia I showed, those are animals that are going to be on antibiotics for months. So we're looking at more of a 6-month, 8-month, sometimes 9-month rehab.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like it really varies from turtle to turtle. Do you ever kind of get to know your turtles, as you work with them?
Yeah, you definitely do. It's a funny question, but you certainly do. And each turtle has their own little quirks. And, part of the job of being a biologist is to observe. We're trained to observe our environment and to observe behavior. And the turtles definitely behave differently. And knowing what's normal for each turtle is important too. So if I were to come in one day and a certain turtle is always at the surface and now he's diving, that is really important. And it's a great sign of progression of health. They have to be able to dive. A lot of them can't dive, for the first week or couple weeks. Not everybody, but a lot of them have buoyancy issues. So just knowing the little quirks of each turtle is extremely important and can be an indicator of improving or declining health.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And we've got one more question from EC McCoy in the chat, asking, Have you ever seen previously tagged turtles return multiple years in a row and cold stunned from stranded?
Great question. Early in my career, no. But the past maybe 5 years, we've seen a number of times that happen. And we're trying to look at now, where were each of those tagged turtles released, and does that play a role? So were those released down south? Were they released up here? And that work is ongoing. So we're pulling together some of these tags, but we're also communicating with others in the network to see, is this happening to anybody else? But that age class really shouldn't be coming back up this far. So there could be other factors. So part of our job also is science. We do a lot of research clinically. So, imagine if you take your dog or cat or Lauren's bird to a vet, they have a lot of data. They have a lot of information known about what type of medication and how much and how frequent. And that we just didn't know those things in sea turtle medicine 20 years ago. So we've been doing a lot of that research at the aquarium and with partners elsewhere and at the National Marine Life Center. Both of those agencies have actually done publications together. So it's an amazing network to be part of, because people are in it to make improvements for the turtles. They're not in it for themselves.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like, speaking of that network, does every single turtle that comes through and gets to that healed phase get released? Like, I know some aquariums have turtles that were, brought in because they were injured, or like, kind of what do you usually see happening there?
Yeah, I think probably decades ago, you would see if turtles came in with an issue, sometimes they would end up as an ambassador at some facility, or zoo, aquarium, what have you. The federal government now is very, very strict. So there has to be, the turtles would have to meet a list of criteria of now why they can't be released, why they couldn't survive in their own environment. So the government is very strict, and I think most rehab organizations are. The goal is to rehab and release. Lauren did a great job stressing that a lot of these turtles are endangered. So Kemp's Ridleys are critically endangered. We're down to a population of 7,500 nesting females. This is not a good place to be. So it really does matter getting every turtle out, so that hopefully they become breeders and contribute to the population growth.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And yeah, I think Lauren had mentioned there has been some population growth seen, right, in recent years.
Yeah, there has a little bit. We've had some ups and downs. I think it was early 2014. There was a meeting called in Texas because the growth had stopped. And there was a lot of concern among the Kemp's Ridley researchers. Why is this happening? And just a real pause. It got everybody together and just to talk about the problem, what's causing it. But there are certainly some wild cards that make me nervous. Even if we start seeing some population growth, climate change is a real unknown. We know it's affecting turtles, and it's affecting them fast. So as Lauren mentioned, Gulf of Maine is the most rapidly warming body of water on the planet. And this might be becoming a more suitable turtle habitat certain times a year, and certainly at the surface. Last summer, there were record sea surface temperatures. So there's so many unknowns, I think, in population growth that we have to be very careful about. We want to be enthusiastic, but we have to keep at it, because anything could happen.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And just so many factors to keep track of.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just to wrap up here, do you have any words of advice for how folks who aren't on the East Coast could help? San Francisco, any words of advice for turtle rescue hopefuls?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot that people can do from anywhere. Certainly, you can help by donating to any of these groups that help rehab sea turtles, and there are a lot of them along the eastern seaboard. following their pages helps. It keeps you informed. But also just basic things around your home. Educate your children. Be aware of where your trash goes. A big problem with sea turtles is entanglements and just plastic ingestion. Those little sandwich bags, things like that. That's all very harmful to turtles, whereas avoiding the bags and just buying one piece of, either metal lunchbox type of thing, then you're going to use that over and over and over again and not put little sandwich bags in. So, and these are things that even kids can, help with. They can be excited that this is why your lunch is packed in this type of a, packaging. So there is definitely a lot you can do.
Yeah, I love that little changes paired with the bigger ones to come together. Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Connie. It was so great to hear from you and chat with you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And we are going to bring on Ed to wrap us up talking about some turtles and planes.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks for having me. Night School, I really appreciate it. Great job by Lauren and me. Great information. My name is Jerry, and I have the awesome of, I didn't know this myself until a couple of years ago at the Oshkosh Air Show. I was introduced as the first turtle pilot ever for Turtles Fly 2. And I'll get into how I started with them in just a minute. I'm a private pilot dentist on Long Island, and I tell patients that I will cancel your appointment with turtles. So that's how much I love these creatures and how much dedication that I have to moving them and saving them when I'm called upon. Turtles Fly 2 is partners with NOAA, the National Atmospheric Administration, U.S. and Wildlife Service, NASA. We work closely with the New England Aquarium, the National Marine Life Center, and we're even sponsored by Bose, world's greatest aviation headsets, by the way. But we work with many, many aquariums and zoos up and down the eastern seaboard, and now even on the west, thanks to a man that you heard, Leslie Weinstein, was mentioned by Connie. His are second to none. His task is huge, and he handles it absolutely beautifully. And Turtles Fly 2 were the only air transport permit for wildlife issued by the FAA. We got number 0150, and we reapplied for, we got 002 the next 5 years. It has expanded immensely. We don't just fly turtles. So we move seals, sea otters, whale rescue assistance. We move transport dive teams to help save
Hey,
whales.
Ed. Sorry. Ed, your sound is a little bit rough right now. Do you want to try turning off your camera and see if that helps? And I'll pull up your slides.
Okay. And did that help?
Why don't you continue talking and I'll pop on if it. I think it's a little better.
A little bit better? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go back to, we don't just move turtles. We've expanded to seals, whale rescues. We've even done humanitarian relief for example, a hurricane Bahamas, and we do supplies from Florida to the Bahamas back and forth with our airplanes to bring food and water and stuff to and other needed supplies. I got involved with Turtles Fly 2 back in 2014, the big stun of 1,200 plus turtles, and Leslie Weinstein looked for pilots through a little organization that I'm also involved in called Pilots in Paws. I rescue cats and dogs as well. And when I saw sea turtles, I called Leslie. I said, I have to have sea turtles in my plane. I have to get involved. So, and that's how I became first pilot for Turtles before we were even Turtle 2. And Kate Sampson from probably wants me to just one quick thing before we get to my slideshow. It was a call I received on December 23rd, and I was asked to fly sea turtle on Christmas Eve, 2015, and I said, "How many?" And she said, 8. And I said, "Wait a minute, you're asking a fat guy with a beard to fly 8 on Christmas Eve. I'm the chosen one." So that was a fun trip. I wore a Santa Claus hat and moved the 8 sea turtles. And somebody asked before if we named them, and of course those were all, Dasher and Prancer, and get the idea. And just have to say again, a massive amount of effort in organizing these trips. My props go out to Leslie Weinstein. He has to organize between different aquarium, ground transportation, pilots like myself, the FBOs, or fixed operations, which are the airport personnel where we get fuel. They have to be ready for us to move these turtles and fuel up our planes for us so that we can get on our way. Then we had these larger, we had a large release of the turtles just a couple months ago. And Leslie asked me to coordinate 3 different airplanes to move 34 turtles and film crew, like Lauren was in my plane. And I had to figure out different speeds, different volumes that planes could hold, the range that they could fly, so that we all land at the destination airport approximately the same time. So it was a tricky puzzle. And we took the 3 planes off actually 7:30 a.m., 7:45, and 8:30 a.m. And we all landed minutes of each other on the other end. So it worked out real great. So we're going to run the slideshow now, if we can do that, Lynn, and I'll just kind of chat about the slides you see. So these are the turtles in the banana boxes, and I will talk about banana boxes in a little more detail. And that's the New England Aquarium truck, and they come to the airport in Cape Cod. It's called Marshall, and that's the plane behind the Suburban. And we start loading the turtles, banana boxes. You can see the Chiquita banana boxes here. We like Dole also. Anyway, we're loading these boxes into the airplanes, and it's playing a giant game of Tetris or Jenga. So we're going to play this little video here. You can see banana box, and you see the hole in the top of the banana box. Okay, that's one reason we use banana boxes. They're sturdy. The corrugated walls hold up to stacking in the airplanes. They're a nice size. They fit 1 to 2 turtles. The holes for breathing is phenomenal, as you can see right here. And there's some of our favorite little creatures, and we stack them in the plane very carefully. Now it's the pilot. That was me loading the plane. The pilot is in charge. You can go on to the next slide if you want. The pilot is in charge of stacking their airplane. We're responsible for our weight and balance. So you can see here, this was the multi-airplane release. So we were loading some airplanes up, and there's a good, my plane opened up, the boxes stacked blanket over them, because it's very important to keep these at a specific, and you can see the boxes stacked behind my daughter and I there. And anyway, we have to keep the turtles between 60 and 75 degrees, which is not an easy. These airplanes don't have climate control systems like your car might nowadays. So we have a probe in the back, and we have a Radio Shack type of thermometer in laps, and we turn the heat on, we turn the heat off. We turn the heat on, turn the heat off. We fly along, keeping the temperature between 68 and 75 as best we can to keep these turtles in good condition while we transport them. So just a couple of shots how stacked airplane. My plane, 28 by 56 turtles. And there are planes that are bigger. There are planes that are smaller, but they're all useful. So it's nice to have a team of pilots as we do this. 2 turtles and a banana on the left. And it's just one of the most rewarding things that we can do. there's our thermometer showing that we're keeping our dog crate on the right for a larger head. I had to move to the Pittsburgh Zoo, but we keep our temperatures just so. And there's our little friends peeking out of some of the breathing holes of the banana box. And so this is what the transport looks like. This is a wonderful place in Jekyll Island, Georgia Sea Turtle Center, Jekyll Island. Highly recommend that everybody takes a trip to Jekyll Island, Georgia. You will not be sorry you made the trip. And this is our big release a couple months ago down in North Carolina. And you can see our little turtle sticking his head out there. He was ready to go. And this was a very rewarding thing for me because I don't always move in 60 turtles most of the time. It's really nice to move healthy ones and see them get put back in the water. And, you know, instead of moving sick ones and hoping they're okay. But I'm sure the people we hand them off to do a great job, like Connie. And this is right here, watching these turtles go back in and watch the smiles on all these people. So this is Jekyll Island right here. We did a big turtle release after the big cold stun, and they were very nice. They honored us pilots that. And here's a little video of how they actually went down to the water. And they're ready to go. They're swimming, you know, and see, turtles do fly. There you go. So, warm waters off. Okay. You can do the next slide. The video is just really, so, yeah. Okay. And that's them honoring us pilots down in Jekyll Island. That was very kind of them. So we had a great time. And it's just so worth it. You know, it's all the effort. It's worth all finance that, you know, we donate our time, our fuel. We pay for the fuel, and it's just so worth it. And that's what it's like to move sea turtles. Let's see if that might be the last slide. I think so. Okay, so I know I don't have my camera going. I'm going to read a little passage from Leslie Weinstein and Bonnie at Turtles Fly 2 for anybody who's wondering out there how they can get involved. Turtles Fly 2 is not really a hands-on public volunteerism organization where we sponsor events or handle the fragile passengers. Instead, Turtles 2 recruits skilled volunteers who with professional like photography, storytelling, programming for services, website support, legal assistance, and public relations. We offer internships for college students, for social media and design, of course, pilots like myself. Anyone by sharing the word through social media and word of mouth. You can contribute to the work we do directly or passively through the corporate match program. Personal fundraisers on Facebook, connecting Turtles Fly 2 to your Amazon Smile account, or signing up for rewards at stores, Kroger, and choosing Turtles Fly 2 as your charity of choice. So if Lynn would put up our website, you can learn more about us at turtlesfly2.org. Just spell it all out, turtlesfly2.org. Okay, I'll put my camera back on. Maybe it's not so jerky anymore. I don't know. But that's what it's like. It's pilot.
I can kind of hear you. Let's see if we can try and do a short Q&A.
All right, I'll turn my camera off again if it helps.
Oh,
Does that help?
Well, then I feel like this just makes it awkward for me.
I'm here.
Okay. Hopefully you all could hear most of what Ed said. In the chat, you'll see Turtles Fly 2, the website. So check it out if you want more information. Okay, Ed, let's try and do super quick questions so I'm not awkwardly hanging out on my own. First, the video of the little flapping turtle was adorable. So great to see. Tara asks, what is the average flight time?
Well, that depends. I've had flights. I fly from Long Island up to Cape in about an hour with my airplane. And when I go to Baltimore, it takes me about 2.5 hours. I go down to Virginia, it might take me about 3.5. I go all the way down to Jekyll Island, Georgia, and it could take me as much as 6 hours to get down there. And I did a trip with my buddy in November all the way to Pensacola, Florida, and that took about 8 hours. So we do stop for fuel sometimes, and we hope that the fixed-based operation, the FBO, is ready for us. And thanks to Les, they usually are. And we get a quick splash of fuel, top it off, and get back in the plane and go, because we can't control the temperature of the plane when it's on the ground and not running. And we don't want the turtles to get too cold in the winter or too hot in a spring or summer transport when they're released. So we act quickly, move fast. So, but the planes we fly from 2 hours to 8 hours.
Okay, I think hopefully you all heard that. I think I heard 1 to 6 hours, but it varies based on where Ed's coming from. I'm gonna add Lauren's slide here. Oh wait, it didn't work. I was gonna try and add a turtle image so it's not just me watching things. But it's not working. Okay. Oh hey Ed. Next question is, what's the highest number of turtles you've flown at once?
Okay, I've had as 28 turtles in my plane, and as little as 4. I've moved as little as 4, but I've had up to 28. My plane can fit up to 56 turtles. If we have 2 in a box, I can fit 28 boxes.
Okay, Ed, I think we'll let your audio rest, but everybody go check out Turtles Fly 2. No worries. And then I'm going to bring back Aria. Thanks again, Ed.
Okay.
All right, Aria. Hi.
Hi, I'm back.
The fun of live events.
Yeah, no, this was great. Thanks to Ed. And everybody watching, we're going to drop some specifics of how to get involved with Turtles Fly 2 in the ways that Ed was talking about, like volunteering, turtle driving, food supplying, all the things, very shortly. So stay tuned for that. But yeah.
Just wanted to give another thank you to Lauren, Connie, and Ed. Thank you so much for just taking care of the turtles, but also sharing the story with us tonight. As Lauren mentioned, learn more about this in the biographic feature that will be coming out soon. Next month, September 2nd, learn how nature nurtures human health. So hear from scientists about the surprising way poison birds and biodiversity impact medicine and public health. Poison birds, if you were here for our Extreme Life Night School, Jack Dumbarker will be back, and then we'll also have Shannon Bennett. And I know some of you asked in the beginning. I texted Christina, and she's happy to give a little quick update. She's very touched that you asked about her, and she has a very good baby named Rose.
Very good baby. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching and tuning in, and definitely subscribe so you'll be notified when we come back in a month. All of these recordings will stay on YouTube, so you can rewatch them as many times as you want just to learn even more about the turtles. Yeah, it's great to have you all as usual.
Hope to see you next month.